August is here, and it's the biggest baseball card of the year. Well, not quite. There's 5 games, but they're all nighttime games, so we have plenty of time to talk about them. But it's still a nice little baseball card. And don't forget, football starts tonight, August 1st, the preseason Hall of Fame game. We got CFL. We got a lot of sports here now that we're in the month of August, but baseball is still taking center stage on a daily basis. And we're here every weekday, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, live, taking your questions in the chat as well. I'm Steve Merrill, filling in for Dan Alexander. He'll be back on Monday. Joe Ranieri in the studio, logging your questions right now from YouTube Shorts, Instagram Live, X, and also TikTok. Throw them in our way. But we're going to cover all 5 games because we have time to do so. And I'm joined by 2 of the best baseball cappers at WagerTalk.com. Tokyo Brandon, and to balance it out on the other side of the ocean, Adam Trigger. We're covering the globe here, boys. We're going to cover all 5 games on the MLB card. In Tokyo, let's start with you at the top of the order. Your big game breakdown is the first game in the rotation at 7:20 Eastern tonight, Miami and Atlanta. Curious to get your thoughts on this, Brandon, because I'm actually going to break this game down as well on Wager Talk today, which don't forget is live at noon Eastern right after this show. So, Brandon, what are you doing with Miami and Atlanta, Meyer and Morton tonight on Thursday?
Hey, what's up, Steve? What's up, Adam? Yeah, I like this game for a couple of reasons. Mainly because both teams have really strong bullpens recently. I do my rankings based on current form and a couple of other factors, and I have both of these bullpens top 10 in Major League Baseball. And I have both lineups. Actually, Atlanta's lineup struggling quite a bit. Miami's lineup quite powerful, actually. Miami hits rather well, and they don't get a lot of credit. They kind of get kicked around. They did give up a couple of their players, but they're still batting quite well. And what I really like is the 2 bullpens and the head-to-head. So Max Meyer's not exactly a household name, but if you take a look at what he's done, he only has 14 at-bats against this Atlanta team. But he's held them to a 571 OPS. And if you look at his past starts, he's only had 4 starts, but 6 inning, 5 inning, 4 innings. So he goes quite short, but only in one of those starts has he given up more than 2 earned runs. So he's not a household name, but he's a fairly good pitcher and fairly reliable. And Atlanta's in a little bit of a quagmire, so I think he'll be able to hold them down a bit. So if we take a look at the other side, we got Chris Morton going. And against these Marlins, we have a little bit bigger sample size. He's got 40 at-bats against. He's held them to a 150 batting average against and a 427 OPS against. So given the fact that Miami is probably going to get on a little bit of a downturn here and Atlanta's not quite hitting well, we got 2 good bullpens. I kind of like the under in the first 5 in this one, or even in the full game. But I'm going to go first 5 because I like the pitcher head-to-head matchups, and it's quite a high number at 4.5. Right now you can get under 4.5 at -104. I like that. So my breakdown for the game and the play for the show is under 4.5 in the first 5 innings.
Yeah, and in Brandon's defense, he sent this over as a game to talk about yesterday early when the lines first came out, and Brandon often does move the lines, and he's often on the sharp side. And as you know, Brandon, there was a 9 across the board, which is a very key total. It's now 8.5, and same thing kind of hits you on this first 5. There were a few 5s available, which is a key number, but now, as he said, it's 4.5s across the board. But he still likes it. First 5 inning under 4.5, Braves and Marlins. So, Brandon, your thoughts on that line going from 9 to 8.5 on the game itself?
Buy the half run. I mean, it's not that expensive, and we get a lot more runs in baseball than in hockey or others. So yeah, buy the half run. It's not that expensive. Take it to 9 and go under full game. But I prefer the first half, the first 5 innings under 4.5. If it's 8.5, you get more value taking 4.5 in the first 5 anyways. So I'd prefer the first half.
And once again, don't forget, there's not key numbers in the first 5. It can land on 4, and it doesn't have to go to extra innings if it's 2-2. That's the one difference also, whereas the reason 9 is such a key number that if it's 4-4, it can't land on 8, and it gets bumped a little bit higher than because of extra innings. That is Tokyo Brandon, and that game's at 7:20 Eastern on MLB Network. Miami Marlins, Atlanta Braves. Joe Ranieri will not have to drive up to Hotlanta. He can watch the first couple innings at least on MLB Network, because at 8:05 Eastern, they're going to put the Cardinals Cubs on, Joe. They will simulcast, and the nation will have to battle between these two National League games for their viewing pleasure. But Adam, you're going to talk about a different game here, and that's my Baltimore Orioles against Brian Leonard's and Ralph Michaels and whoever, Brian Powers, maybe his Cleveland Guardians. Orioles still undecided. This is actually the first game of the night. It's in the American League at 6:40 Eastern. Orioles undecided at Cleveland against Lively. We are seeing several books with lines, though, and most of them have it around a pick 'em. So we'll see who the Orioles end up going with, but it looks like Cleveland Orioles are going to be a pick 'em, a very competitive game. And you do have an opinion in this one.
Yeah, and the reason you're not seeing this up at all the books right is the Orioles haven't officially announced their starting pitcher, but that's very important here. I want to make that clear right off the top. I'm assuming with this handicap, the pitcher is going to be Trevor Rogers. I think it's going to be him making his Baltimore debut. Dean Kramer's listed for tomorrow. If for some reason it's Dean Kramer, you can throw this out. I have no interest in betting on Dean Kramer. But if it is Rogers, I think the Orioles are a good bet here, and it probably ends up being the only, my client play for today. So you can stay tuned for that. Neither of these teams, I would say over the last month or so, Steve, have been like overly dominant, but they're still the two best teams in baseball from a record perspective, and they'll sort of battle it out in this series. Maybe a little bit of potential revenge for Baltimore. They kind of got knocked around in that series earlier this year with the Guardians. I think they did salvage the finale, but we're staring at a sweep and kind of needed a big effort to escape not being swept by Cleveland. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way here. So another thing we got to get out there off the top, Jordan Westburg injured, probably done for the regular season, which I think is definitely gonna play into the number here. It's widely sort of been reported that being the case, but I don't think it makes a huge difference to the overall makeup of this team. Reason being, it's going to open up some playing time for Jackson Holliday. You're probably going to get a lot of Ramon Urias at third base. And what would be the best case scenario, in my opinion, for the Orioles is to just finally call up Kobe Mayo and let him play every day. Something that they can easily do now that they've moved Stowers and they've moved Norby. And he's kind of like, these guys that, Steve, we've talked about it on this show sort of extensively, the sort of log jam for playing time for some of these guys that have been stuck down at Norfolk. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad, it sucks for Westburg. He's an all-star, but I don't necessarily think it's like a bad thing for us to get Holiday in there every day, Mayo in there every day potentially. So I'm not going to downgrade the Orioles, at all in that perspective. I still think they're the same team they were, yesterday or the day before. If Trevor Rogers is the starter, like I said, I'll like the Orioles a lot in this spot. He pitched well against the Guardians earlier this year. He's pitched well against the Guardians throughout his career, 3.17 ERA in 9 career starts against Cleveland. And again, I like the Orioles in general in this matchup. So with Rogers on the mound, it just sort of elevates that far more than it would for me if it was Kramer. Kramer's not a guy that I've been really trying to back, so I would probably take a step back, even though I still like the Orioles, the way they match up here with Ben Lively, who I'll talk about in a second. I wouldn't be dying to bet on Kramer. So again, this bet, got to have Rogers listed or I'm not interested in betting it. On the other side, I do think Ben Lively is a good play against here. Now, he's been phenomenal this year. Career year for him. 16 of his 18 starts, Steve, have been quality starts. This is a 32-year-old guy that Tokyo Brandon and I were watching on a day-to-day basis in KBO for like 3 years. Never thought he would get back into the MLB and produce like he has. And I can tell you exactly why it's happening. He's always been a command guy, super reliant on location, and he's hit all of his spots this year. He really was doing this last year with the Reds, and then he got hurt and he got fatigued. And, with a guy that relies on pinpoint control, once, trying to pitch through an injury or a little bit fatigue is borderline impossible. That's what Lively was doing last year. He hasn't had to do that this year. He's been healthy, and, he hits all his spots, and that's why his numbers are what they are. Now, the Orioles are a bad matchup for him because the Orioles excel at hitting, anything other than velo, right? So like I've talked about this a couple times. Orioles struggle with like high fastball velocity. across the board, they're like 27th in MLB against fastballs 95 plus. But they're elite at hitting, off speed and hitting the ball out of the ballpark. They're leading the majors in home runs. Ben Lively never throws more than 90 miles an hour. I think if he's lucky, 91. So, unless his command is as sharp as it's been all season, I can just about guarantee the Orioles put a couple of balls, over the fence, and they're able to generate some offense via the long ball. Guardians, obvious bullpen edge here, but again, I think Rogers is going to be good. I think he'll have the Orioles in the lead. I think you're going to see a couple home runs off of Lively, and I think that puts the Orioles in position to get away with a win here. So as long as it's Rogers on the hill, I like the Orioles a lot tonight, Cleveland.
And Adam was very adamant that my Baltimore Orioles had to pick up. He thought they needed to be buyers, especially with the starting pitching. I didn't want them to give away too much of that talent, but they do have plenty of talent, like he said, at AAA, and came full circle because they picked up Trevor Rogers, who, of course, was originally drafted by the Miami Marlins. And by the way, Adam will have a thought on that Miami-Atlanta, that MLB network game for his best bet here at the end of the show in just a moment. By the way, Eric D in the live chat on YouTube says Miami beats Atlanta tonight. He's calling for the upset. Ruzen said he appreciated me explaining the key number concept. Always great to see Ru and Eric. They're here every day. And then Joseph Mendoza, Tokyo, is saying he can't buy up to 9. Would he still play under 8.5? Well, I'll answer it for you, Joseph. He actually likes the first 5 inning under 4.5, which is the current number. So I'm pretty sure Tokyo's answer would be play the first 5 inning under 4.5. Don't worry about that full game 8.5. And Tokyo, let's throw it back to you. You're going to have a best bet here in a little bit on that Cubs game, which is also MLB Network. But let's stay in the American League, and I'll ask you about Kansas City and Detroit. A lot of people thought Detroit would be sellers with some of their starters. Some people thought they should be buyers because they're still in the wild card hunt. What are your thoughts on this game? Kansas City, a pretty hefty road favorite for a team that's been as good as anybody at home. They actually had the second most home wins behind the Phillies this year coming in this week. Much weaker on the road, and we saw them open as high as $1.70. Not surprising maybe that this line has dropped a little bit, but Kansas City still $1.55 road favorite at Detroit. And once again, 8.5 under that key number of 9 for the total. Any thoughts on this one, Tigers and Royals tonight?
Yeah, I have a 4% play today in Major League Baseball, and it's in this game. But I'll give you pretty much, you can probably deduct what my 4% play is by my breakdown. But Detroit's hitting is not real good right now. I have them ranked 28th out of 30 teams in Major League Baseball, and these are a lot of stats that combine not just their batting average and their run production, but a lot of other stats combined with current form and season form and etc. It's the same numbers I used when I was a scout. They're the same numbers I used, so to speak. Detroit's not really hitting well, but Kansas City, their bullpen is horrible. A little bit improved over the last couple of days. My rankings change daily. So we got one good lineup, one poor lineup. We got one decent bullpen and one really poor bullpen. So Detroit's bullpen is a little bit above average, but Kansas City's is terrible. And I have the starting pitchers. Obviously, Lugo's a little bit better than Montero, but you got to dig deeper into how they face off against the other team's batters. But Kansas City's obviously the better team. They do have a losing record on the road, but Detroit has a losing record at home. So make of that what you will. You got to dig a little deeper to get a play out of it. But Detroit's going to have some problems scoring runs here.
And Adam, let me throw it to you right now. What are your thoughts on these teams going forward and also in this game itself tonight? I mean, as I said, the Royals have been a great home team. They've been a little shaky on the road, yet you're laying a big number here. Your thoughts on this one, if you have anything?
Yeah, I mean, so I definitely have thoughts, probably more or less like what I think these teams are going forward. I thought this was interesting. Seth Lugo, as good as he's been, and he's had a phenomenal season. And I really do think that he's like he was a deserving all-star. He never really had like the regression I expected in the first half. But if you throw out that complete game against the White Sox, in July, his ERA was 6.75 in the other 3 starts. So maybe we are seeing him regress ever so slightly. It's kind of had him on my, I like he's on my fade list because of that, only because he's been so good. So this is a tough one for me because coming into the season, I was like, I think Lugo's going to be really good. He is, and now so I'm hesitant to go against him, but I did think that was interesting to point out. Now, Tokyo Brandon nailed the Tigers lineup, and I've got numbers to support it. Last 8 games, so they had their little surge. The Tigers had their little surge. Now they're back to being what I thought the Tigers would be this year, which is a bad baseball team. They're 2-6 over their last 8 games. They're hitting 177 as a team, and they're averaging 2.75 runs per game, which is kind of what this Tigers team is. I go back to the beginning of the year, and I've gotten some of the future stuff wrong this year on these shows. Cubs, and I even thought the Blue Jays were going to be a good team at one point. But the one thing I nailed was this Tigers team being far worse than the market suggested. At the beginning of the year, they were getting priced like a 90-win team. They were far and away the most popular season win total over in the betting market. And the only thing is, though, now the odds have swung considerably. So it's like people have bailed on the Tigers, and you can really start to get like some appealing prices with them. So I haven't fully given up on Kiter Montero. He's been bad the last couple starts, but I still think there's some potential there. So I guess for me, like the slightest of leans towards Tigers plus 1.5, but it's not going to make my client card. I just don't. I like the Royals too much overall as a team, the way they hit the ball collectively. And I just have too much dislike for the Tigers to jump in and make that play. But it is kind of what my gut is telling me here.
Yeah, Tigers, a nice little run here. We'll see if they can hold on. They currently, right now, 4th in their own division, 8 games out on the wild card. So it does look like they're fading after losing now 7 of their last 10. And speaking of a team that will not be in the wild card race, Brand, there's only 3 teams in the National League that are out of it. There've been 2 all season. Everyone else is 6.5 games or less. But my Washington Nationals now 9 out, so not looking good there. Joe Ranieri's Miami Marlins, of course, have been struggling all year. They're 17.5 out. But the other team, the worst team in the National League, is the Colorado Rockies. They're 19 games out of the wild card. Their season is obviously over. In fact, they have the 2nd worst record in baseball after the White Sox, who have been just horrendously bad. Everybody wins about 40% normally. The White Sox are obviously testing my theory there because now they're 111 games in, and they're at a 243 win percentage. Chicago White Sox 27-84. Rockies 39-70, but they've been really bad on the road once again this year. They're just 5 games under at home, 15-41 on the road. And Joe Ranieri and I talked about this Tuesday night on Sports Grid. I did it with Dave Sherapan, and I pointed out when we were talking about this first game that, it's not a surprise, Brandon. The Rockies build that roster to compete in the altitude and the thin air. So I think this home road split will continue every year, and we're seeing it again this season. They lost 10-7 on Tuesday. They stole a 2-1 ugly game last night. What are you doing with this one tonight, this final game here, Anaheim and Colorado? I know you're probably not in a hurry to lay juice with the Angels, but are we going to really back the Rockies on the road either?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Fulmer's actually a better pitcher than people think. He's not a household name, but I grade my pitchers on a curve of 30, so I have about 300 starting pitchers in my database, but I curve it to 30 so I can compare them to the bullpens and the lineups respectively. And I have him ranked 11 out of 30 on a curve, Fulmer. Not a lot of sample size though, so that might not be a real reliable statistic. But I got Feltner at 20 or at 21. So the Rockies for a short period of time, I think it was about a week ago, they were ranked top 10 in hitting in MLB, but some of that might have to do with the monkey ballpark they play in at home, which I refuse to cap games in. But on the road, you nailed it. They're a horrible road team. And what are they? 15-41 on the road. Just awful.
Yep.
Angels are not real great at home. But I do like the Angels hitting. The Angels have some good guys, some good hitters, despite not having Trout, not having Ohtani anymore. And they got the better bullpen. The only way to go would be the Angels here. I know you don't want to lay too much, but minus 120 is not such a bad price to lay with this team, given the fact that they have the better hitting, the better bullpen, and the better starting pitcher. Actually, I might make that a client play when this show's over. Now that I analyze its numbers, at first it was just an auto pass, but actually I might make a play on the Angels here. Minus 20, it's not such a bad price considering they have all the advantages.
Yeah, exactly. And I pointed that out on Tuesday. I like the Angels when I talked about this on Sports Grid Tuesday Night Tokyo, that I was like, the worst teams in baseball win 40, 50 games still. And the Angels are not a good team, but they're not going to miss an opportunity either. And they did win 10-7 on Tuesday. You got to wonder if that 2-1 loss yesterday maybe resets them and they do come out with another home win here as a short favorite. I'm going to actually talk about this game on Wager Talk today with the Prez in about 30 minutes. So stay tuned here on Wager Talk TV at noon Eastern for my take on this one. And in the meantime, on the way up, before we get to your best bet, Adam, a real quick 30 seconds or so, you have anything on this game that caught your eye?
Yeah, I agree with Brandon. I don't really have much to add. I give Fulmer the slight edge over Feltner. Angels have won 9 of their last 15. I don't make much of the Renfigo injury. I mean, he's going to probably be out here, and I think that's probably why you're getting a little bit of a discount on the Angels. But the Rockies are just so horrific on the road. And somehow the Angels have been playing a little bit better. I saw Joyce didn't pitch yesterday, so it probably gives them a little bit of an edge in a close game, bullpen-wise. So, yeah, I'm with you guys. I lean Angels here.
Well, we're going to head back to the best bets. We've covered 4 of the 5 games. I know we haven't gotten to the Cardinals-Cubs, but Brandon's going to have a best bet on that. But first, Adam, let's circle back to the first MLB Network game tonight. Adam, we got the Braves and Marlins once again. This is your best bet for this show. Let us know also what you got going on at wagertalk.com.
Yeah, so I don't have a play up yet, but if I do, it's likely going to be in that Orioles-Guardians game. And if you watch the show, you know what it is. So, if you see a nice little sales brick up there for today, it's probably that. But, as far as the long-term stuff, we have a great August special running right now. I am very, involved in preseason football. I'm not betting the Hall of Fame game tonight, but I will, I'll probably have 8 to 10 NFL preseason plays over the course of August. Went 6-2 in those plays last year. I've won in the NFL preseason just about every year for the past decade. So one of my favorite stretches of the football calendar. And I'm, looking forward to that. That's part of August. And then, of course, you've got MLB, KBO, be doing those right through August as well. So check that, monthly special out that I believe is up for all handicappers right now. Yep, buy 2 months, get August free. It's right there on your screen. And that's good for all cappers. As far as my best bet is concerned for the show, I wanted to talk Marlins Braves because I felt like this is a game my best bet for today is the Orioles. That's the game I'm targeting. But I'm targeting these 2 teams going forward, and I think it does apply here. I think some of what I'm going to talk about correlates with what Tokyo Brandon said for his play. I don't think the Braves are a good baseball team at all, and I know they're 4-1 in their last 5 games. I was watching MLB Network this morning, and you're going to hear throughout the day. The Braves, if they win today, they're going to be as close as they've been since the Phillies since mid-June. What I have to say to the people is please keep hyping this team up so we can continue to just bet against them, because they're not. This Braves team is not a playoff team in my opinion. I think they're the team that ends up falling out of the race. The reason I say that is, I look at their lineup, and yes, Matt Olson started to get going, and that's certainly going to help them out. But Soler being back is nice, but it's not 2021. I don't know if you can, count on him to do that, to do what he did. But I mean, on a daily basis, Steve, 6 through 9 is Travis d'Arnaud, Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, Orlando Arcia, Whit Merrifield, Kellenic. A lot of these guys are batting 200. A couple of them are under 200. And I just don't know how you win on a regular basis when that's half of your lineup. Even if Olson's hitting the ball, even if Soler comes out and ends up overachieving and being a big piece for them, we know they're without Acuna. They've been without Acuna most of the season. I just don't think this is a team that makes much noise this year. But over the next 10 days, they are going to be priced like a high-end option because of the teams they're playing. So this stretch starts a stretch of 4 at home against the Marlins. They then get the Brewers at home for 3, which is a team they just took 2 of 3 from, even though the Brewers are the better of those 2 teams. Then they go out to Colorado for 3, to the Giants for 4, and to the Angels for 3. So who knows? Maybe the Braves could make a run as a result of their schedule being, very favorable. But I would look to just play against them almost on a daily basis. Look to take the +1.5, which is going to be my best bet here. Now the Marlins are 1-5 against the Braves this season, but I'll point out that none of those games have occurred since April. All of those games were in the month of April. This is a much different Marlins team. In April, they were like 6-24 and already giving up on the season. This is now a team of guys, a lot of younger guys, different faces in there, guys that are going to be, kind of pieces to the future. And you've seen the short-term sort of results for the Marlins. They've been very good. They've played much better. They know they're not playing for anything this year, but they've been better. And I think they'll continue to be really good, against the betting number, meaning as a plus money underdog and against that +1.5. Now, Meyer, I love his angle toward the under because I'm super high on Meyer. He should not have been in the minors as long as he was. That was the Marlins manipulating his service time because they knew back in April their season was over. So they made excuses like, oh, he's down there shaping his pitches, innings limit. That was a bunch of BS. It was just to control him for another year. So now he's rightfully back. And I don't put much stock into the fact that he only lasted 4 innings against the Brewers. I think he's a very good starting pitcher. And I think he's going to throw the ball well down the stretch the next 2 months. So, again, I agree with Brandon because I think he throws the ball well again here. On the other side, it's Charlie Morton. He wasn't great in July, 5.31 ERA in 4 July starts. He hasn't been great against the Marlins, 12 earned runs in 10.1 innings the last 2 starts against them, but he's usually good for a decent outing. That being said, I think the Marlins can get to him for enough to be in this game. Some of Xavier Edwards, Jonah Brown, newly acquired Kyle Stowers, all reasons to like this Marlins team going forward because you're getting a option that's priced at the very bottom of the league, but this is not the same group that lost the majority of these games. It's actually the group that's been winning the last couple of weeks, and I don't think the markets have caught up on the Marlins yet. So I'm right on the fringe here. Marlins +1.5 is how I'm looking. I don't know if I'll get to the window with this one today, but I'll probably be looking that way all series long, trying to find a good spot to play the Marlins here on the +1.5 against the Braves. And who knows, maybe that good spot is tonight.
It's Adam Trigger. Follow him on WagerTalk at wt.buzz/AT. And there's a great new feature, by the way, for all the cappers at WagerTalk. There's a daily message feature, so you'll know exactly when Adam's got his card up, what he's looking at, how many best bets are in the package, and that works for myself, Steve Merrill, Tokyo, Brandon as well. And Tokyo, the live chat is bumping right here. They want a free Mexican baseball play. Ruzen says he wants a free Mexican baseball play. Well, we're not going to do that. Free baseball play, you could do so, but you're going to look at the other half of this MLB network split national TV card, and that's the other National League game and the one game we haven't gotten to tonight, and that is going to be the Cardinals at the Cubs at 8:05 Eastern. Cubs a slight home favorite, totals around 7.5 to 8, but you're looking at the first 5 in this one, Tokyo. What do you got? And tell us also what you got going on at WagerTalk.com because people might want to pay attention. You are having a fantastic season once again. And baseball is obviously your sport. You're number 1 in MLB profits this year and also number 1 in all sports profits 3 the last 4 years at WagerTalk.
Yeah, so unmuted sounds better. Number 1 in 2024 all sports. Number 1 3 of the last 4 years all sports, and number 1 in MLB profit 2024. And I have a 4% play in Major League Baseball tonight. So please go to my page and grab that. The link is right there. I have a free play up as well. Mexican League Baseball. Yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on it, but I do like Laguna today against Saltillo. It's not a client play, but that's just a little information for you. So let's talk about the Cardinals and Cubs. So we got Sonny Gray and Shota Imanaga. And we got two teams that are, well, one's hitting quite well and one's hitting not so well. Can you guess which is which? Cardinals are hitting, I have them ranked 14, which is slightly above mediocre. And I have the Cubs hitting 26 out of 30 teams, which is not very good. So advantage Cardinals. Bullpens, Cardinals have a terrible bullpen. They're ranked 18. Cubs bullpen, not too bad, ranked 9. But what I really like is the starting pitchers here. I have both of them in top 10. Imanaga's in great form right now. He's gone against 3 of the most powerful lineups. He's gone against Kansas City, Arizona, and Baltimore. He's only given up 4 earned in his last 3 starts. He's kind of on a roll. He's only had one really bad game where he gave up 10 to the Mets. So he's reliable, as most Japanese pitchers are, pretty reliable. So you can pretty much count on him to stifle most lineups. And against the Cardinals, small sample size, 18 at bats, but he's held them to a 167 batting average against and a 422 OPS, which are great numbers. So we can probably count on the Cardinals not scoring a lot of runs in this game. Sonny Gray is a little bit more of a wild card. He's a great pitcher. I have him ranked top 10, but in his last 3 starts, he's given up 13 runs. And in his last 4 starts, he's given up 18. So he's on a bit of a slide here. But he does have good numbers against the Cardinals in his career. And it's a pretty good sample size. In 90 at bats, he has an OPS of only 683. So I'm going to look at another first 5 under in this one. I think he can hold the Cubs enough. I don't think the Cardinals are going to score more than 1 run. So let's say the Cardinals score 1. Do you think the Cubs are going to score 3 on Sonny Gray? I doubt it. Not in the first 5. So I like the under 4 in the first 5 in this game, which is going to be my best bet for the show. Again, I do have a 4% best bet out at my page there, which you can go grab. But for the best bet for the show, I like Cardinals Cubs first 5 under 4.
It's Tokyo Brandon going under first 5 inning in that Cubs Cardinals game tonight on MLB Network. And once again, it pays to ask questions in the live chat. Ruzen muscled a Mexican baseball opinion out of him as well. So once again, we appreciate the live chat on YouTube Shorts, Instagram Live, TikTok, and also X, Twitter. And we do answer the questions when we can. Only 5 games. We covered all 5 of them here. And by the way, Ruzen, you had another question I want to get to real quick. You said some days you look at the card, you have 10 plays you like. Other days you look at 15 games and can find nothing. Yes, that happens to all of us. But one thing Teddy and I talked about on WagerTalk today a few weeks ago is be very cautious when that happens, in my opinion, because I'm a small sample guy. I usually have 1 to 2 best bets a day in baseball. So in any sport, when I like 10 or 12 games, that's a red flag that maybe I'm not seeing things clearly. Whereas if you like nothing wrong with that, because I'm usually a small volume guy. But I would say if you like a lot of games, be careful, because I found over my 30-year career, those are often days when you're not seeing things well. If you see a bunch of strong best bets all in the same day, then maybe you need to reset and dig a little bit deeper. But we appreciate the questions in the live chat. And don't forget, we watch the replays here on YouTube 24/7, and we monitor the questions 24/7. So if you're catching the replay here, ask away in any questions in the chat below, the comments below, as we do read them or reply back. Look, you got a free Mexican baseball bonus play along with the 5 games tonight. That's not a reason to hit a thumbs up. I don't know what is. Hit subscribe and hit the bell as well, so you know when the videos go up every day. I'm doing Olympic basketball preview videos. I'm going to have a Puerto Rico USA men's basketball preview tomorrow for the Saturday game. So be sure to hit subscribe and click the bell for instant alerts. And you'll also know when Wager Talk Today goes live here in 20 minutes at noon Eastern. Now, I am on with the Prez, along with Jesse Shule, Kyle Anthony. It's a loaded show here at 12 noon Eastern. We'll see you then. Best of luck, and check in tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern once again for MLB First Pitch right here on Wager Talk TV.